Jake Sully, a Marine who sustained a paralyzing injury in combat, is chosen to replace his twin brother Tommy as the operator of an avatar on Pandora. Tommy had been preparing for 3 years to control the avatar, which is a genetically engineered hybrid of human and the native Na'vi people. The Avatar program is part of a human mission to extract a valuable mineral called unobtainium from Pandora. Jake is placed in a cryogenic chamber for transportation, and upon arrival, he must wear an oxygen mask as the atmosphere on Pandora is not breathable for humans. Upon arriving on Pandora, Jake is introduced to Dr. Grace Augustine and Norm Spellman, another Avatar operator. Dr. Augustine expresses her dissatisfaction with Jake taking over for Tommy, who had been specifically trained for the role. Despite her initial reluctance, she puts Jake in the link which connects his brain to control the avatar. Upon awakening in the avatar body, Jake disregards the instructions of the medical staff, who had advised him to take things slowly. Instead, he runs out of the facility, elated by the sensation of being able to use his legs again. Dr. Augustine has a meeting with Parker Selfridge, who appears to be the driving force behind the human invasion of Pandora. The military leader in charge is Colonel Quaritch. Dr. Augustine expresses her frustration with Selfridge's constant interference in the Avatar program, which is under her jurisdiction. Jake, Norm, and Dr. Augustine take their avatars out of the facility in a helicopter piloted by Trudy Chacon. She drops them off for a survey mission, and Jake separates from the group. He encounters a dinosaur-like creature that almost attacks him. Dr. Augustine instructs him not to shoot it as its skin is too thick to be penetrated by bullets. But another creature arrives and starts attacking Jake. Dr. Augustine screams at Jake to run, which he does. He manages to escape by leaping off a cliff and into a large waterfall. However, he is now separated from the group. Dr. Augustine, Norm, and Trudy continue to fly around looking for Jake until nightfall, but they are forced to follow orders and return before nightfall. Dr. Augustine worries that Jake will not survive a night alone on Pandora. As Jake wanders through the forest at night, he encounters various creatures. Nadiri, a member of the Na'vi people, is perched on a branch above him and is about to shoot him with an arrow, but a small sea anemone-like creature lands on her arrow. This is interpreted as a sign, and she does not shoot. Later, Jake finds himself surrounded by the panther-like creatures that had attacked him earlier. He attempts to defend himself, but is about to be defeated when Nadiri arrives and kills the creatures with her bow and arrow. Jake expresses his gratitude to her, but she is deeply troubled by having to take the lives of these innocent creatures. Jake follows her through the forest, asking her to teach him how to protect himself. Initially, she is hesitant, but suddenly the sea anemone-like creatures appear again. Thousands of them perch on Jake's body, and Nadiri looks amazed. She leads him to a clearing where a group of Na'vi on Pandora's version of horses arrive. They intend to kill Jake, as they know he is one of the Sky People, a human in an avatar's body. However, Nadiri claims that he has been chosen by Awa, their deity. They agree to bring him back to their home tree, where the final decision will be made by the leaders. They agree to let him stay on the condition that Nadiri teaches him everything. Jake wakes up in his human form, and Grace and Norm are relieved that his avatar is safe and impressed that he has gained the trust of the Na'vi. They want him to try to find a diplomatic solution, but Colonel Quaritch wants Jake to use this position to find out the Na'vi's weaknesses so the military can defeat them. He promises Jake an expensive surgery to regain the use of his legs if he does this. Nadiri instructs Jake in various aspects of the Na'vi culture, including language and horseback riding. She explains how the braids worn by the Na'vi connect to the reins of the horses, allowing for a mental connection between rider and mount. Despite initial difficulties, Jake persists in his training and becomes more closely involved with the clan. He convinces them to allow Grace's avatar to visit. Nadiri also trains Jake in hunting, and once he successfully makes a clean kill and offers a prayer, she declares him ready. She then takes him to the lair of her own mount, a pterodactyl-like creature called a banshee, which can be ridden through the connection of her braid. Nadiri explains that, unlike the horses, each Na'vi has a lifelong bond with a single banshee, and Jake must find his own. Together with other Na'vi, Jake and Neytiri ascend a towering structure to reach the Banshee's habitat. Neytiri tells Jake that the Banshee that is meant for him will not flee, but will instead attempt to kill him. Jake finds a Banshee that challenges him and engages in a struggle to establish a connection. He almost loses but ultimately succeeds, taking his first flight. In a voiceover, Jake reflects that while he never felt comfortable riding horses, flying is where he truly belongs. Neytiri joins him on her own Banshee, and they share loving glances. While flying, Jake and Neytiri are unexpectedly attacked by a massive dragon-like creature called a Lenopteryx. They manage to escape by flying down to the ground. Every time Jake's avatar goes to sleep, he wakes up in his human form. He records video logs of his experiences on Pandora, one set for Grace and another for Colonel Quaritch. He stops sending logs to Quaritch for a while, causing the Colonel to become suspicious of Jake's commitment. Jake explains that he needs more time to find a peaceful solution before they launch an attack. Neytiri takes Jake to a special location on Pandora where the Na'vi can connect with the planet's deity, Awa, and hear the memories of their ancestors. She informs him that by bringing him there, he has secured his place in the clan and will officially be accepted as one of them. Jake mentions that he has already chosen a woman, but she must also choose him in return. Neytiri reveals that she has already chosen him, and they engage in a romantic act, symbolizing their commitment to each other for life. They fall asleep afterwards. The next morning, Neytiri wakes to the sound of a bulldozer destroying the trees of Awa, causing her great distress. Jake is still asleep and disconnected from his link at the base. Grace forces him to eat before reconnecting just in time to see the bulldozer approaching them. He frantically waves his arms to try to stop it, but it only pauses briefly before continuing. The bulldozer is being controlled by Colonel Quaritch, and Jake manages to jump on the machine and break the cameras, preventing further control. Colonel Quaritch, upon seeing the video, realizes that Jake has switched sides and joined the Na'vi. At Home Tree, the Na'vi are devastated by the destruction caused by the humans, with Grace also present in avatar form. They blame the humans for bringing the Sky People to Pandora. Suddenly, Toity, a Na'vi who has never fully accepted Jake, discovers that Neytiri and Jake are mated, leaving Grace surprised. Meanwhile, Colonel Quaritch storms into the linking area at the base and disconnects Grace and Jake's links. Grace pleads with Parker for more time, as Quaritch and Parker plan to attack Home Tree, which sits on top of a large deposit of unobtainium. They eventually agree to allow Jake and Grace to link up again in an attempt to convince the Na'vi to leave Home Tree. Jake and Grace go to Home Tree in an attempt to convince the Na'vi to leave before the military attack, but Jake admits that he knew about the plan from the beginning. Neytiri is devastated and tells him to leave. Grace and Jake are tied up as the military arrives and starts to bomb the area. The Na'vi retaliate with arrows, but they have no effect. Maud, Neytiri's mother, unties them, believing that if they are truly Na'vi, they should help them. Trudy, who is in one of the helicopters, chooses to leave, saying she didn't sign up for this. The bombing ultimately causes Home Tree to collapse, and Neytiri's father is killed in the battle. The military retreats, and Colonel Quaritch disconnects Grace and Jake's links again. They are all arrested and placed in a prison cell, with Grace and Jake screaming that Quaritch is a murderer. As Trudy brings food to the prisoners, she pulls a gun on the guard and frees Jake, Grace, and Norm with the help of Max, a doctor in the Avatar program. Jake tells Max to stay behind as he needs someone he can trust on the inside. As they escape in Trudy's helicopter, they are detected by Quaritch, who starts shooting at them. They barely manage to take off and fly to the floating mountains, where they have another link station, and they cannot be tracked as they are too high up in the atmosphere. During the flight, Jake realizes that Grace has been shot and is losing a lot of blood. Upon reaching the link station, Jake determined that rebuilding trust with the Na'vi was necessary. He flew his Banshee to attempt to establish a connection with the Lenopteryx, who did not expect this. He managed to train the creature and flew it to the Tree of Souls, where the Na'vi had relocated. When they saw that he had tamed the beast, they were amazed. Neytiri expressed that she had been worried for her people but now felt reassured. She said, "I see you," which is the most profound expression of love between the Na'vi. meaning they see into each other's souls. Jake reciprocated the sentiment but quickly explained that he needed help as Grace was dying. Grace and her avatar were brought to the Na'vi, where Moat performed a ritual that would transfer Grace's consciousness permanently into her avatar, allowing her to survive without the need for a link. Despite their attempts to seek help from Awa, her injuries were too severe and she passed away. Jake then gave a speech, informing them that the Sky People were planning to attack again and that they must unite and fight back. They set out to enlist the support of the other Pandora clans and were successful. Meanwhile, back at the base, Quaritch saw on radar that their numbers were gradually growing to over 2,000 Na'vi. Max sent a video message to Jake, Grace and Trudy, informing them of the plan to mobilize and attack the Tree of Souls. As Jake stands alone at the Tree of Souls, he pleads with Awa to assist the Na'vi. Neytiri approaches us from behind, stating that despite his efforts, Awa does not take sides, but rather protects the balance of life. They then embrace. The final battle commences with ground troops advancing. Suddenly, something is detected on the radar getting closer and closer. It's the Na'vi on their horses. In the air, the military's planes are preparing to attack but are met with resistance from Na'vi on Banshees. Jake and Neytiri are among these soldiers, while Norm is on the ground. The Na'vi on the ground are suffering heavy casualties as they are facing guns with only bows and arrows. Those in the air are causing some damage but not enough. Trudy attempts to attack Quaritch's plane with her helicopter but is hit and her helicopter explodes, resulting in her death. Norm is also shot on the ground and wakes up in his link station, struggling to breathe. Neytiri is attacked by a plane and falls to the forest floor but survives. Jake tries to communicate with his friends but receives no response. Neytiri is on the ground, hiding and surrounded by humans. Jake urgently warns her not to attack, as it would result in her death. However, she does not listen and prepares her bow to fight to the death. But at that moment, the humans suddenly stop. They detect something else approaching on the radar. Suddenly, all the creatures seen earlier, the dinosaur and panther-like creatures, charge towards the humans, who are killed in large numbers. Neytiri rejoices as Awa has listened to Jake. In an attempt to defeat Quaritch, Jake attacks his plane, but Quaritch manages to escape by getting into a large robot-like shell controlled by humans in battle. He crashes to the forest floor and engages in a one-on-one fight with Jake. They are close to the link station where Jake's consciousness is still linked to his avatar. Quaritch damages the link station, causing a small hole to form in Jake's bed. Since humans cannot breathe Pandora's air, Jake's human body, still linked to his avatar, starts choking. Jake, in his avatar form, continues to fight but is overpowered by Quaritch, who is about to deliver the final blow when Neytiri appears and shoots 2 arrows directly into Quaritch's chest. After the enemy is defeated, Neytiri rushes to Jake's side, who has collapsed and lost consciousness due to the strain on his human body. Despite his paralysis, he manages to exit the link station, but is unable to grab the emergency oxygen mask. As he falls to the ground, he stops breathing. Neytiri tries in vain to revive his avatar form, but instead she enters the link station and places the oxygen mask on Jake's human form. He regains consciousness, able to breathe again. Neytiri holds him close as they both express their love and recognition of one another with the phrase "I see you." In his final video log, Jake in human form explains that the human team has been sent back to Earth. Only a few members, Norm and Max, are permitted to stay behind. He mentions that he must not be late for his own celebration and concludes the log. At the Tree of Souls, Moat and Neytiri repeat the same ceremony they had attempted with Grace. Jake's mind is permanently transferred to his avatar form and he awakens. And the movie ends here. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and get notified on our next movie explanations. Thank you and see you in the next video.